They stood outside the house she once called home, her twins clutching her hands, while the people who should have embraced her shut the door in her face. And still, she whispered, "Don't cry, babies. Mama's got you." The air was thick with the smell of lilies and regret. Lena stood at the edge of the cemetery, her hands gripping the two small palms beside her. Her twins, Maya and Eli, stood motionless, their eyes wide but dry, too young to understand death in its cruel entirety, but old enough to know their world had just shattered. A few steps behind them, her late husband's parents whispered with pursed lips and folded arms, standing in the shade like shadows that never offered warmth. "Didn't even wear black," his mother muttered, just loud enough. "Look at her. No tears. Cold, like she never loved him," his father added. Lena heard them. Every word slashed deeper than the autumn wind biting through her coat, but she said nothing. She couldn't afford to bleed in front of them. Instead, she crouched to Maya's level and brushed a strand of blonde hair from her daughter's cheek. "You okay, baby?" Maya nodded, then pointed. "Why is Grandpa so mad?" Lena swallowed hard. "He's just sad, sweetheart. Sometimes sadness turns into mean words." "Like when you broke the cup and cried in the bathroom?" Eli added. Lena smiled faintly. "Smart, that one. Just like his father." "Yeah, kinda like that." She didn't stay for the lowering of the casket. They weren't staying for anything anymore. By sundown, Lena was back at what used to be home, only it no longer was. Boxes stood stacked by the front porch. Her in-laws had made good on the promise they hadn't even tried to hide. "You're not welcome here," his mother had said last week, as if she was doing Lena a favor by waiting until after the funeral. "This house belongs to our son's legacy, and quite frankly, you were never part of it." "But my kids, they have our blood. That's all that matters." Now the door didn't open. Lena knocked twice, then stopped herself. "I don't think they're going to say bye, Mama," Maya said softly. "No, I don't think they are either." She reached down, grabbed two duffel bags, and wrapped her scarf tighter. She didn't cry. Not here. Not while those cold faces might be watching from behind lace curtains. "Where are we going?" Eli asked. "Somewhere safe," Lena said. "Where's safe?" "I'll let you know when we find it." Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let us begin. 4 hours later, the stars blinked through a canopy of pines. Lena had walked them as far as her legs could carry. A rusty bus stop sign marked a gravel road leading into the woods. The wind howled low, and her fingers ached from carrying their things. Her boots were soaked. The twins were dragging. Then, like a flicker in the trees, a light. Small, faint, but real. "Mama!" Maya tugged her hand, pointing. "I see it!"
With every step toward it, Lena's chest grew tighter. Not from fear, but from the desperate hope that she could ask someone, anyone, for just one warm night. The cabin stood crooked against the tree line, half swallowed by ivy. A front porch sagged with time, its wood pale and split. But smoke curled from the chimney. That meant heat. That meant life. Inside, Daniel stood over a pot of stew, stirring slowly. The fire crackled, dancing shadows against the old timber walls. The cabin had been his grandfather's, and the scent of cedar still clung to the air, mixing with onions and thyme. He wasn't expecting visitors. He certainly wasn't expecting them. A knock, tentative, like the wind might have done it. Then again. And a third time. When he opened the door, the sight took him back like a blow. A woman, mid-30s maybe, pale, soaked, clenching the hands of two shivering children. Her eyes locked onto his, guarded, desperate, proud. "I'm sorry," she said, voice low but steady. "We've been walking for hours. I didn't know this place was occupied." Daniel blinked. "You're on old trail land. No one comes through here." "We'll keep going." She started to turn. He noticed the kid's lips, blue, and the way the boy stumbled a step. "Wait," he said. She paused. "You got somewhere to be?" She hesitated, then answered truthfully. "No." He stepped back and opened the door wider. "Then come in." Lena's shoulders dropped a fraction, but she didn't thank him. Not yet. She just led the twins inside. Daniel fetched blankets, laying one across Eli's lap and handing the other to Maya. He knelt by the fireplace, adding another log. "What's your name?" he asked the boy. "Eli. She's Maya. She's my mom." Daniel looked up at her. "I'm Daniel." Lena nodded once. "Thank you." Just until they warm up. He didn't press. Something in her posture said not to. She didn't flinch when he handed her a bowl of stew, but she did hesitate before taking it. For a long time, the only sounds were spoons scraping and the pop of fire. Outside, the wind carried whispers through the trees. Inside, something quiet and uncertain began to unfold. Not trust. Not yet. But the first fragile seed of it. If you were in Lena's shoes, rejected, lost, and with no one to turn to, what would you have done? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about resilience. Morning broke in soft grays, the light barely seeping through the frost-covered window panes of Daniel's cabin. Lena stirred first, her neck stiff from sleeping upright in the corner. Her hand was still wrapped around Maya's tiny foot, as if even in sleep she feared her child might slip away. Eli was nestled on a folded wool blanket by the hearth, his little arms stretched out as if reaching for warmth in his dreams. Daniel wasn't in the room. Her heart skipped. The momentary panic, where were they? Was this a mistake? Rushed in like a flood. Then the smell of coffee and the faint scrape of boots on the porch. Lena stood, combed her fingers through her tangled hair, and checked both children again. She wasn't used to peace. Every quiet moment in recent months had preceded chaos. She stepped outside. Daniel was chopping firewood. His movements were measured, methodical, almost meditative. He noticed her but didn't speak right away. Just passed her a tin mug and gestured toward the steaming kettle on the tree stump beside him. "You sleep?" he asked. "A little," she replied, holding the mug in both hands like it might break. "Thank you again. We'll head out soon. I don't want to intrude." "You didn't." He passed another log. "Where were you headed last night?" She took a sip before answering. The coffee was bitter, but hot. "I didn't have a destination, just away." "From what?" Lena's eyes met his, sharp, exhausted. "Does it matter?" He paused, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough." Inside, the twins had stirred. Maya crept to the window and stared out. She saw Daniel first, then her mom, and smiled. "He made fire, Mama. He's nice." Daniel walked back inside just as Eli tried to fold the blanket. "You don't have to do that," he said, kneeling to help. "My mom says we clean up our messes, even if they're not our fault." That hit Daniel like a quiet punch. He looked up at Lena, but she was turned away, adjusting Maya's sweater. Later, they sat around the small table, Daniel, Lena, the twins, sharing leftover stew in silence. Lena broke it first. We'll head out after this. Thank you for letting us stay. He didn't answer right away. He focused on slicing bread. There's an old storage cabin about a mile from here. Used to belong to my grandfather. It's rough, but it has a stove, walls, a roof. If you're really set on leaving, I could take you there. Lena looked down at her spoon. You don't even know us. Daniel leaned back, met her gaze. I don't need to. I can see enough. She blinked. What do you see? He hesitated. A mother doing everything she can, and a system that probably didn't do a damn thing to help. That made her chest tighten. She hadn't expected him to understand. She didn't want him to. She stood suddenly. I can't stay here and make you feel obligated. You've already done more than anyone else has. Daniel's voice remained calm. No one's obliging me. I'm offering you a choice. She clenched her jaw, emotions threatening to surface. You ever been pitied, Daniel? I've been shot at, held the hands of dying men. I know the difference between pity and decency.
A good place to start. By noon, Daniel had loaded a few supplies into a cart and offered to walk them to the old cabin. Lena hesitated before accepting, not because she didn't trust him, but because she didn't know if she could trust herself to trust anyone. The walk was quiet, the trail narrow, flanked by pines and thick underbrush. Maya picked wildflowers. Eli found a crooked stick and declared it his sword. At one point, Daniel reached over and picked a leaf from Lena's hair. She flinched, then relaxed. He smiled, barely. When they arrived, the cabin was exactly as he'd said. Weathered, dusty, but standing. I can help patch the roof next week, he said, and bring more wood. Lena nodded. He turned to leave, but Maya tugged at his coat. Will you stay for Coco later? Daniel crouched to her level. Only if your mom says I can. Maya turned to Lena. So did Eli. 4 eyes. Hopeful. Lena sighed, then smiled, for the first time in what felt like months. All right, but just Coco. Daniel tipped an imaginary hat. Coco it is. That night, after the twins were asleep, Lena stepped outside. The stars glittered. The cold nipped, but inside her chest, a small warmth flickered. Not love, not yet, but the kind of stillness that makes love possible. Have you ever received kindness when you least expected it? How did it change you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's celebrate the people who showed up when no one else did. The room stilled. The twins didn't quite understand, but they could sense the shift, like the moment just before thunder. Lena sat back down, her hands trembling. Sorry, I don't know who I am anymore. Your mother, he said. That's... Lena stared out the cracked cabin window, arms crossed tightly across her chest, watching the woods breathe in the early morning fog. The children still slept. Maya curled against the far wall like a kitten. Eli, hugging the carved wooden sword Daniel had given him. Outside, birds sang a little too sweetly for Lena's mood. Daniel hadn't come back the next day like he said he would. That shouldn't have mattered. She didn't expect him to. She shouldn't have. But somehow his absence sank like a stone into her chest. She didn't want to need kindness. Needing people was how she'd ended up with nothing. Across the hill, Daniel stood in his workshop. staring at a wooden music box he'd been carving for months and never finished. His hands were steady with the chisel, but his mind clouded. Why had he offered to help a woman he barely knew? Why had her voice haunted him all night like a song he couldn't place? He wasn't her savior. He didn't want to be anyone's savior anymore. But those kids, that look in Lena's eyes, like someone who'd kept herself stitched together with nothing but thread and sheer will. He exhaled slowly and set the box down. Then grabbed his coat. Later that afternoon, he arrived at the cabin with a stack of firewood and a small paper bag. Bread, jam, 2 apples, and cocoa. Lena met him at the door. "You didn't have to come," she said, not moving to open it wider. "I know." He held up the bag. "Thought they might be hungry." "They're fine." Daniel didn't push. "I can leave it on the porch." He turned to go, but her voice stopped him. "They ask about you, the kids." He looked back. "Do you?" She sighed. "I'm not looking for charity, Daniel. I'm not offering charity." "Then what are you offering?" He thought for a long moment. "Maybe just company. Humankind. The kind that doesn't come with strings or judgments." She stared at him, unsure whether to believe him or bolt. "Why?" she asked. "Why care at all?" Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "Because I've seen what happens when people don't." Over the next few days, Daniel returned once, then again, always with something small. Tools to fix the cracked stovepipe, a children's book, fresh socks for the kids. Never too much, never pity. But Lena felt herself withdrawing all the same. One night, as they sat by the fire, Eli climbed into Daniel's lap without asking. Daniel was surprised, but he didn't move. He read softly from a tattered old book until Eli. His head drooped. Lena watched from the corner. Her eyes welled, but she blinked it away. "You're good with them," she said. "I had a younger brother once. Wasn't much older than Eli when he died."
The silence thickened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He nodded. "It was years ago." Another silence. Daniel turned toward her, voice gentler now. "You can let your guard down a little, you know. I'm not here to hurt you." Lena looked at the fire. "It's not you I don't trust." "Then who?" "Myself," she said quietly. "For trusting the wrong people for too long." But the world outside wasn't done testing her. The next morning, she walked into the nearest town, 4 miles, with Eli in tow to buy soap and milk using the last $20 she had. As she passed the general store, a familiar voice froze her. Well, if it isn't the widow playing house in the woods. She turned. Her late husband's cousin, Rick, smirking. Cruel in his smile, just like the rest of them. "You've really sunk low, huh? I heard you're shacked up with that loner carpenter. Guess you moved on fast." Lena clenched her fists. "I'm just surviving." Rick leaned in. "Yeah, looks like you're taking advantage, more like. You always were good at that." Eli gripped her coat tightly. "Mama?" Lena pulled him behind her. "Let's go." Back at the cabin, she found herself boiling with shame. Not anger, shame, as if Rick's words had been right. She paced for an hour, hands trembling, nerves fraying. When Daniel arrived that evening with nails and fresh bread, she barely looked at him. You shouldn't keep coming here. Daniel blinked. Did something happen? You're making this harder than it has to be. He set down the bread, confused. I thought we were doing okay. We're not. You're not my responsibility, and I'm not your project. He frowned. That's not what this is. Then what is it? You come here, you bring food, you play dad. Why? To feel good about yourself? Daniel's jaw tightened. Is that what you really think? I think people don't help without a reason. He was quiet for a long time. Lena, I don't help you because I have to. I help you because I want to. That's it. No agenda, no hidden price. She shook her head. Well, I didn't ask for help, and I'm not your charity case. He stared at her, wounded, then nodded once, slowly. All right. He turned, picking up the hammer he brought. You won't see me again. And then just like that, he left. Eli came out moments later, looking around. Where's Mr. Bear? Lena's throat closed. He's gone, she whispered. Did he go away mad? She crouched beside him, voice barely steady. No, baby. People just go sometimes. But as she hugged her son, her heart screamed what her lips never could. Please don't let this be the end. Have you ever pushed someone away out of fear, only to regret it later? What stopped you from letting them in? Let's open up in the comments. Someone else might need to hear your story.
The rain started with a whisper and ended with a roar. By nightfall, the trail to town was nothing but a river of mud, the bridge nearby submerged under churning gray water. Thunder rolled overhead like a warning from the sky itself. Lena stared out the window of the small cabin, arms wrapped around her knees, her thoughts louder than the storm. She hadn't seen Daniel in 4 days, not since she'd thrown his kindness back in his face, not since her words, sharp with fear and pride, had cut through the fragile peace they'd been building. And now, of course, she needed him. The roof had sprung a leak, the back door wouldn't close, Eli had come down with a fever, and the trail was impassable. She'd tried everything. The medicine she had was expired. The blankets weren't enough. She sat beside Eli now, pressing a damp cloth to his forehead, whispering soothing nothings as he drifted in and out of restless dreams. The storm outside roared louder, and then a knock. Daniel. Drenched from the storm, boots soaked, shoulders stiff beneath his worn coat. Lena froze. I saw the light still on, and I heard the storm took the bridge. I just wanted to check. Eli's sick. She cut in. No other words needed. Her voice cracked just enough to say everything else. Daniel stepped inside without waiting. He knelt beside Eli, who moaned softly. Daniel laid the back of his hand against the boy's forehead. He's burning up. I know. I tried everything. I don't know what else to do. Daniel stood. I'll get the medicine kit. No, Lena said quickly. You don't have to. But he was already heading out the door, coat flapping in the wind like a flag of mercy. He returned 20 minutes later, soaked again, hair plastered to his forehead, holding a dented tin box. Inside, mercy. Fever medicine, antiseptic, a thermometer, even cough syrup. Daniel knelt again, gentler than before. Like touching Eli too hard might shatter him. He administered the medicine with soft words and steady hands. Lena sat back, watching. "Why did you come?" she finally asked, her voice almost drowned by the rain. Daniel didn't look at her. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about that kid calling me Mr. Bear." Lena blinked. He finally turned to her. "Because I meant it when I said I don't walk away." She swallowed hard, guilt and gratitude warring in her throat. "I shouldn't have said what I said." "I know." A beat. "I didn't mean it." "I know that too." They sat in silence for a while, just listening to the rain pound against the tin roof. Occasionally, thunder cracked like the sky was breaking open. Eli stirred and mumbled, "Mama?" "I'm here," Lena whispered, smoothing his hair. Daniel stood, walked to the stove, and quietly lit the fire back to life again. Lena followed. "You stayed." "Didn't I say I would?" She exhaled, looked down at her hands. "I thought I was protecting myself by pushing you away, but maybe I was just repeating a pattern." "From who?" "My husband. He stopped letting me in long before he died, and I kept trying to fix something that didn't want fixing." Daniel didn't respond right away. Then he said, "My brother used to say, you can't heal in the same place that made you bleed."
Lena looked at him, something cracking inside her. "Then what do? You find somewhere new, someone new, who won't hand you a knife every time you ask for love." The storm surged. A sudden crack split the sky and the front window. Glass shattered inward. Rain poured. Daniel jumped up. "I'll cover it," he said, grabbing a sheet of plywood and hammer from the corner. Lena stood beside him, holding it steady as he worked. Their shoulders brushed once. Neither pulled away. When the window was boarded, they both stepped back, breathing hard. Lena smiled, just barely. "I guess now you're stuck here too." He chuckled. "Guess I am." Later, with the fire roaring and the wind settling into sleep, Maya curled into Daniel's side. He froze for half a second, then softened, pulling the blanket around her. Lena sat across the fire, watching, something tender and painful blooming all at once in her chest. "I don't know what this is," she admitted softly. "I don't know what we're doing." Daniel looked over the fire, eyes steady. "We're surviving, together. That's something." Lena nodded, her lips quivering with something too new to name. That night, the cabin no longer felt like a crutch or a tomb. It felt like shelter, like something that just might grow into a home. Have you ever been forced into closeness with someone you tried to keep at arm's length, only to realize that's exactly what you needed? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes storms reveal what sunshine hides. The fever broke by morning. Eli's breathing had steadied, and his cheeks, rosy now, carried the faint warmth of returning health. Daniel watched quietly from the doorway as Lena pulled the blanket higher over her son's chest, smoothing his hair with slow, tender strokes. "You did good," Daniel said softly. Lena glanced at him, her voice a near whisper. "You helped. I was glad to." She offered a small, tired smile. "He'll be okay." Daniel nodded. "He's stronger than he looks." Lena stood up, rubbing her arms. "He gets that from his sister. And she gets it from you." Lena turned away before he could see her eyes blur. That afternoon, the sun cracked through the clouds like a second chance. The forest, still damp and dripping from the storm, smelled of pine and rebirth. Daniel stayed to help fix the back door and sweep out the rainwater. Maya followed him everywhere, asking questions and humming while he worked. When she was called in to rest, Daniel found Lena sitting outside on a flat tree stump, watching the leaves sway. He sat a few feet away, leaving space. She didn't speak right away, but when she did, her voice came low and measured, like she'd been rehearsing it. "Do you want to know the truth about my husband?" Daniel said nothing, just waited. Lena looked straight ahead. "We were married 5 years. Got pregnant with the twins 2 months after the wedding. It wasn't planned, but we thought we were ready."
She paused. "His parents never liked me. I wasn't their kind of people. Too poor, too damaged. My mom had addiction problems, and that was enough for them to write me off." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. "At first, he stood by me. He told me they'd come around, that we'd prove them wrong." "And did they?" Daniel asked gently. Lena exhaled a humorless laugh. "No, they just got better at pretending. And he got tired of trying." She swallowed hard. "He started staying late at work, missing birthdays. He'd come home and act like the kids were chores. And me? I became invisible. The girl who did the diapers and the bills and the meals." Daniel looked down at his hands. "Did he ever hurt you?" Lena shook her head quickly. "No, not with fists, but words? Silence? Distance? That can bruise you just the same." She wiped her eyes before the tears fell. "The week before he died, he told me he didn't think we were working anymore, that he'd made a mistake." Daniel's throat ached, but he didn't interrupt. "And then the accident happened. Gone. Just like that." She turned to face Daniel now, eyes fierce through the tears. "And you know the worst part? I grieved him, and I hated him at the same time. And then his parents, God, they looked at me like I'd driven him off a cliff myself." Daniel leaned forward. "You didn't." She nodded. "I know that, but when everyone says something long enough, even silence starts to sound like agreement." A long pause followed. The only sounds were the birds and the wind tugging through the trees. Then Daniel spoke. "I lost someone too." Lena looked over. "My younger brother, Micah. We served together. Same unit. He always wanted to make the world better. I just wanted to survive it." He swallowed. "We got ambushed overseas. He was hit. I dragged him out, but not fast enough. He died in my arms." Lena's face fell. "I'm so sorry." Daniel nodded, eyes distant. "I came home, but part of me didn't. I left the army, left the town I grew up in, built this cabin from scratch with my grandfather, just trying to find something solid." "And did you?" she asked. His eyes met hers. "I think I might be." Later that evening, Lena opened the worn folder Daniel had left on the table by the door. He had said, "I meant to give this to you earlier.
Found it when I went into town after the storm. Inside, legal documents, a small plot of land registered in her late husband's name, a transfer deed. She blinked. The address was familiar. It was the very cabin Daniel had helped her settle into. She flipped the paper over, a date, 3 years prior. Her name, typed clearly beneath the title beneficiary. Her hands shook. "I don't understand," she whispered. Daniel stood by the stove. "Your husband bought it before he died. Quietly. It's yours now." Her knees buckled slightly. "But his parents—" "Never knew. Or they did and chose not to tell you. Either way, it's yours now." She stared at him, breath catching. Why would he do that?
Daniel shrugged gently. Maybe he was trying, in the only way he knew how, to leave you something. A way out. Lena pressed the folder to her chest, her voice cracking. "No one's ever fought for me before. Not even him." Daniel stepped closer. "I'm not fighting for you, Lena. I'm standing with you." That night, as the fire cracked and the wind softened, she whispered something to herself as she drifted to sleep. Something small, but real. Maybe this is what beginning again feels like. Have you ever learned something about someone after they were gone? Something that changed how you saw them forever? Share your story below. Sometimes the truth comes too late, but healing doesn't have to. The days grew cooler, but the cabin felt warmer than ever. A new rhythm emerged. Slow, tender, unspoken. Daniel came by in the mornings with tools or eggs from his hens. Sometimes he stayed to fix things. Sometimes he stayed just long enough to read a chapter to the kids. Lena didn't ask him to. He didn't wait for an invitation. And somehow, it worked. Maya had started drawing again. Eli's cough was gone. They both laughed more, and not the brittle kind, but the belly-deep laughter of children who finally felt safe. And Lena? She found herself smiling at things again. Tiny things. The smell of cinnamon toast. The way Daniel's sleeves rolled just past his forearms. The softness in his voice when he said her name. It was dangerous, that feeling, but it was real. One afternoon, she baked bread for the first time since her husband's death. Her hands were clumsy with the dough, uncertain, like they'd forgotten how to create anything that wasn't survival. Daniel walked in just as she was pulling the loaf from the fire oven. "You cook now?" he teased, raising an eyebrow. She smirked. "I'm full of surprises." He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Smells like heaven." "It tastes like overcompensation," she said, placing the loaf down with exaggerated care. "But you're welcome to judge." Maya bounced over. "It's warm and fluffy." Daniel chuckled. "That's high praise." They all sat at the small table, passing around slices of the imperfect, overbrowned loaf like it was gold. Daniel bit in. "It's good." "You're lying," Lena said, grinning. He shrugged. "I've eaten MREs in a sandstorm. This is 5 stars compared to that." They all laughed. Even Lena really laughed. And for the first time in forever, it didn't feel like a betrayal of grief. It felt like life. After the kids went to bed, Daniel stayed behind. Lena handed him a mug of tea, her hands brushing his just a second too long. He didn't move away. They sat on the porch in silence for a while, wrapped in mismatched blankets. "I forgot how quiet peace can be," Lena whispered. Daniel glanced sideways. "You never had it before?" She thought for a moment. "I don't know. Maybe once, before the twins, before the house got cold." Daniel nodded.
Some people go a whole life without it." She looked at him then, really looked. "You seem different now, like you're carrying less." He shrugged. "Some weight only lifts when you stop holding it alone." Their eyes held for a moment too long. Then Lena smiled softly. "Is that your way of saying I helped you?" "It's my way of saying thank you." Later inside, Lena was tucking in the kids when Eli asked, "Is Mr. Bear going to live with us now?" She paused, heart fluttering. "Why do you ask?" "'Cause he makes you smile like Daddy used to. Except you smile with your eyes now, too." She kissed his forehead, tears pricking. "We'll see, baby." That night, as Daniel prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Hey, Lena." She turned.
He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, wrapped in cloth. He handed it to her. Inside, a hand-carved wooden necklace. A single pendant, shaped like a pine tree, smooth and warm from his hands. "I made it a while ago. Didn't know who it was for. Now I do." Lena didn't speak. She just held it to her chest, heart trembling. Daniel started to turn, but her voice stopped him. "You want to stay for a little while?" He looked at her, eyes careful, kind. "Only if that's what you want." She stepped aside. "It is." They sat by the fire as the wind whispered outside. Not lovers, not yet, but no longer strangers, no longer lost. Just two wounded people finding home in the shape of each other. When did you realize that someone's presence, not their perfection, was the thing that healed you? Share your moment in the comments. You never know who it might comfort. It started with a letter. Lena found it tucked in the folds of Daniel's coat one morning while helping hang it near the door. She hadn't meant to snoop, wasn't even trying to, but the envelope fell out as she lifted the collar. She froze. Her name was on it. Typed. Official looking. The return address, Law Office of Jenkins and Reese. Her stomach flipped. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a copy of the deed, the one that Daniel had given her, and a series of correspondence records between Daniel and the law firm dating back weeks. The earliest date? The day after her husband's funeral. Her throat tightened. He knew before he found her, before he stumbled on them, before the storm, before the cocoa and the kindness and the long nights on the porch. It wasn't just compassion. It was planned. She barely heard him come in behind her. "You weren't supposed to find that yet," Daniel said quietly. She spun, letter clenched in her fist like a blade. "So it's true?" He stepped forward, cautious. "I was going to tell you." "When? After I'd handed you my whole life?" Daniel winced. "I wanted to be sure. You knew about the cabin. You knew about me. You didn't just happen to help me." "I didn't plan to—" "You didn't plan to fall in love with me?" she snapped, her voice cracking. "You were trying to make yourself feel better. You saw a broken widow and decided to play hero." "No," Daniel said, his voice sharper now. "I saw someone who deserved better, and I knew if I told you up front, you'd run before I could show you that."
Because you thought I was weak? Because I knew you were wounded." Lena turned away, chest heaving. "All this time, I thought we were healing together. But you were just fixing me." Daniel shook his head. "That's not fair. Neither was lying. I didn't lie. You hid. That's the same thing when trust is the only thing I have left." The silence afterward felt like something dying. That night, Daniel didn't stay. He stood in the doorway with his hands clenched at his sides, watching her try not to cry in front of the kids. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. Lena didn't look up. "I know. But you did anyway."
Days passed. The cabin felt colder without him. Even the sunlight seemed thinner, more distant. The kids asked where he was. Lena had no answer. She busied herself with chores. She scrubbed the floor twice. She organized the same shelf 5 times. She snapped at Eli when he knocked over a cup and immediately regretted it. She was unraveling, and she hated that it was over a man. But it wasn't just the man, it was the betrayal, the fear that maybe she really was just a project to be rescued, a story someone else could tell over a beer and a long sigh. She had trusted him, and now her chest felt hollow all over again. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his woodshop sanding the same edge of a chair he no longer planned to finish. The cabin was quiet, too quiet. He missed Maya's humming, Eli's endless questions, Lena's sideways smiles. But most of all, he missed the version of himself he had become around her. Lighter, kinder, real. He wanted to go back, to explain again, but he knew trust wasn't something you earned twice with words. You earned it with actions. Back at the cabin, Lena stood by the old mirror in the corner, the one Daniel had rehung weeks ago. She held the pine tree pendant he had carved, rolling it between her fingers like a prayer. 100 memories flashed through her mind. The way he tucked the blanket around Eli. The way he never asked for anything in return. The way he always knocked, even when the door was wide open. She closed her eyes. Maybe she had pushed too hard. Maybe she'd needed to. But now all she had left was the echo of what they'd started. She whispered the thing she hadn't let herself say aloud. "I miss you." Have you ever been so afraid of being hurt again that you hurt someone first, or pushed away someone who was only trying to love you? Let's talk about it in the comments, because healing isn't always clean. Of course, this is the quiet storm before the final sunrise, the act where characters face themselves, alone, and decide whether love is worth the risk again. The fog rolled in thick that morning, curling around trees and swallowing trails whole. Lena sat alone on the front step of the cabin, knees pulled to her chest, the pine tree pendant Daniel had carved, rolling it between her fingers like a prayer. 100 memories flashed through her mind. The way he tucked the blanket around Eli. The way he never asked for anything in return. The way he always knocked, even when the door was wide open. She closed her eyes. Maybe she had pushed too hard. Maybe she'd needed to. But now all she had left was the echo of what they'd started. She whispered the thing she hadn't let herself say aloud. "I miss you." Inside, Maya and Eli quietly colored on the wooden floor. No humming today. No jokes or puppet shows. Even the children knew something had changed. Something had been lost. Maya looked up. "Mama?" Lena blinked. "Yeah, baby?"
Did we do something wrong? Is Mr. Bear gone because of us? Lena's breath caught. No, sweetheart. She moved to the floor, pulling both kids into her arms. Eli leaned his head on her shoulder. Then why does it feel sad all the time again? Lena couldn't answer. Not because she didn't have one, but because the truth was too close to the bone.
Because she had pushed him away, and now she had to decide if her pride was worth more than their peace. Across the hill, Daniel was carving again. Not to distract himself, but because it was the only thing that slowed his thoughts. He'd been trying to write Lena a letter for days. Every version ended up in the fireplace. Too formal, too distant, too late. He didn't want to explain anymore. He wanted to show her. But maybe showing up wasn't his choice to make this time. Maybe it was hers. But that afternoon, something shifted. Lena walked the trail toward town alone. No bags, no kids. Just her and the wind. Her feet took her not to the store, but to Daniel's workshop. The door was open. She could hear the rhythmic scrape of carving inside. It made her heart race and slow all at once. She stood in the doorway watching him from behind. He didn't look up. She spoke first. "You always make the same face when you're focused." Daniel froze. Then, slowly, he turned. His eyes met hers, guarded but hopeful. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wasn't either." A long pause. "I found the letter. The one I wasn't supposed to see." "I know." Lena stepped inside, arms crossed, not defensive, just holding herself together. "I was angry. Scared, really. Because I liked what we were building, and I thought maybe it was a lie." Daniel nodded. "I should have told you from the beginning. I should have let you." He looked up. "Are you still wearing the pendant?" Lena reached into her coat and held it out, worn from her skin. "I thought if I took it off, I wouldn't feel anything." She smiled bitterly. It didn't work. Daniel rose from his chair, stepping slowly toward her. "Lena, I meant it, all of it. The help, the dinners, the cocoa, the porch talks. I didn't love you because I pitied you. I loved you because you made me want to stay."